Hello there, people of the internet. I was watching a cartoon the other day, and it was this banana, like this banana guy sitting in front of a computer, and he was watching somebody peel a banana, and he got caught. And it was hilarious. God, that scene had me straight dying. I put up a poll not too terribly long ago asking people if ammunition brand matters to them as long as it reasonably cycles their firearm, or do they just go out and get the cheapest possible stuff that they can get their hands on. And by a huge margin, people were saying, I'll take the cheapest bottom of the barrel stuff as long as it reasonably runs well inside my firearm and I get reasonable accuracy with it. Now, your definition of reasonable might be different than mine. Like, if I'm just range running and playing, if I have a malfunction per magazine of like an AR or whatever handgun I'm running, and I'm just playing at the range, that's reasonable in terms of reliability for me. If I get like 6 MOA at 100 yards, that's reasonable for just range playing. And I don't mind getting the cheap stuff for that, but in the event that I'm actually doing something with the ammo, that is absolutely not reasonable whatsoever. So the definition of reasonable definitely depends on who it is that you're asking in the scenario that we're talking about here. But I'm going to go ahead and say that as far as playing around goes, like, who cares? Enjoy what you want to enjoy, spend what you're going to spend. Whenever you're just on a flat range and there's no real significant risk to you and you're not using something to keep yourself or your family or your country or whatever safe, then the need for overly accurate and overly reliable ammunition is just not necessarily there, and you can get away with getting whatever is going to be cheapest. But if we're talking about doing something that it legitimately matters, whether or not it is actual SHTF stuff or more conventional, say, hunting stuff, or say sport shooting where you need reliability and you need accuracy, or a situation where you might need that reliability and accuracy. These are instances where ammunition brand absolutely matters. And a lot of people will try to push the bottom tier cheapest stuff that they can find into these roles of hunting or sport shooting or SHTF stockpiling, and it's just not a good idea, especially if you just stockpile the stuff and you don't actually take it out to run it. Like, for example, I've got a buddy, he's probably mid-60s, give or take. He's got an M16, very similar to what I have right here, but his M16 is a 1 and 12 twist barrel, which was one of the original M16 barrel twist rates. And unfortunately for him, he got into the mindset of stockpiling green tip ammunition. Anyone who's tried running green tip through a 1 and 12 twist barrel knows that it is not accurate at all. Those bullets do not stabilize. The 1 and 12 twist just can't pull off stabilizing a 62 grain projectile. It just doesn't work. And there's videos online on YouTube of people testing that if you want to go ahead and go check that out to see that I'm correct. But sure enough, we took it to the range and he couldn't hit a broadside of a barn, literally. There's a joke behind that I'm not putting on the internet. So he discovered that he couldn't touch anything, but he had like 10,000 rounds of this ammunition. And this is an instance of ammo brand mattering. Not necessarily brand, but in this particular case, ammo type. So he definitely would have been better off with 55 grain projectiles over those green tips. But since we're on the 5.56 topic, a lot of people stock up on 223 ammunition just because 223 out there on the market, it's not the most predominant. I'd say it's probably more predominant than 5.56 ammunition. I think the most predominant ammunition on the market's probably going to be 22 long rifle. That'd be another fun topic for another video down the road. But 223 out there, it tends to be cheaper than 5.56 spec ammunition just because I think that there's more companies making 223. Not only that, but it's easier to make. It takes less powder. It's less pressure. It runs the rifle not as hard. Had a phone call to answer. But this is an example of where brand matters. Because this right here, this is 223. I guess this also falls into the category of ammo type. We'll touch more on brands with exact ammo types here in a second. But 223 tends to travel significantly slower than, say, 5.56. This right here, I think, is Lake City 5.56. It's M193. That's a 55 grain bullet. And this particular stuff travels from a 20-inch barrel, a full-length AR barrel. It travels at around 3,250 feet per second, and there's legit chronograph data out there to show that this right here is proper spec M193. However, for every good spec M193, there are plenty that are not up to that spec. Like, for example, the only two that I found that regularly meet the specification of that velocity of 3,250 feet per second are Lake City and PPU 5.56. That's the only ones I found where I'm not able to find other batches of that same brand of ammunition where you get around 3,100 feet per second, which for some reason seems to be what most M193 commercial brands are loading to nowadays. I don't know why, but that's what they're loading to nowadays. So other brands out there like, say, X-Tac and Federal, and insert your choice of other brand of M193 5.56 here, they are less powerful than the Lake City and the PPU. And again, there's chronographed information out there that you can see. You might find a batch that is reaching those 3,250 feet per second numbers, but I have seen other videos or other test results of that same brand of ammunition where you reach that 3,100 feet per second. So like 150 feet per second slower. That is less powerful ammunition. And if you're going to be rocking 5.56 and paying 5.56 prices in comparison to 223, you may as well get the best performing 5.56 that you can possibly get your hands on. This is one of those examples of where brand matters. Not all 5.56 M193 is the same. Whatever brand it is that you're looking at getting, look up chronograph testing of that particular brand, and you'll be able to find some information on that. Don't just look at one test now. That's not going to prove everything to you. You got to look at multiple tests, because maybe one guy has one batch of this brand's ammo, and this guy has this batch of this brand's ammo, and this batch is up to spec, and this batch is not, and it can be kind of confusing, and quite frankly a little disheartening whenever it comes to buying a particular kind of ammunition. Because there's certain times where I've bought certain brands of ammo and I'm like, alright, I'm going to get this velocity from this, and then I chronograph it, and I don't get those velocities, and I'm like, shucks. So for 5.56, the only ones that are consistent are Lake City and PPU, because all the other 5.56 brands out there for M193, like, I've seen examples of them not meeting that spec, and that is disheartening. It's not just 5.56. There's other things out there too. Like, for example, whenever I go out shooting 9mm, I normally get the cheapest bottom of the barrel stuff, like MagTech or Fiocchi, or there's a couple of different steel cases that I've ran before. Just the cheapest stuff that I can possibly get my hands on. And oftentimes I'll find myself running them in I just so happen to have it right here. I'll run them in a carbine length barrel of some kind, and normally 9mm, because I'm using the 115 grain bullets, normally 9mm through a barrel length like this, it's going to end up running 1,400 feet per second, give or take. But like I said before, it depends on brand, because Winchester, the brown box, they call it high pressure 9mm. I'm not quite sure what the pressures are, but that sends a 115 grain bullet through a carbine length barrel at 1,600 feet per second. That's a 200 foot per second increase. That is an example of a 9mm brand that absolutely matters. That 9mm brand is significantly better than other 115 grain projectiles out there. And some 9mm brands are like a 124 grain, or some brands are a 148 grain. But even if you go with those different types of ammunition, the deviations from brand to brand matter significantly. Like Fiocchi's 115 grain is different from Winchester's 115 grain, especially the brown box stuff, because that stuff is absolutely screaming. Another example of whatever brand matters. Here's a good example. I was not planning on including this in the video, but I'll go ahead and do it. This right here is just a jar of 22 long rifle. As I come across 22 long rifle, I toss them in this jar. This is many brands, many bullet weights, many types, many everything. As a matter of fact, there's a 22 Magnum right there. That's not supposed to be in there. A lot of us have jars like this of just random miscellaneous 22 long rifle that we've come across over the years. If I were to go out and accuracy shoot 22 long rifle from this right here, just because of all the different brands and types of ammunition, dude, I would have no accuracy whatsoever. I'd probably have 25 MOA from that, just because we have so many different kinds of 22 long rifle in that particular batch. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to go dump, like mag dump that into some garbage, or make some videos on it talking about whatever it is that I'm talking about. It's definitely not something that I would want to invest my life on, or invest, it's not something that I'd run competitions with, or anything like that. It's going to be a just for fun ammunition. So in the guise of my just for fun idea, just like what I said before, if you're just gonna sit static at a range and enjoy yourself, then who cares what you run? That's why I have that. That's why a lot of us just kind of have jars of random miscellaneous stuff that we piece together to go out and enjoy at the range. But if I needed something with accuracy, brand matters, because each individual brand is going to yield itself to its own, not necessarily level of accuracy, but its own specifications. And the consistency with those specifications are what gets you accuracy. Accuracy comes from consistency from cartridge to cartridge. And whenever you have different brands that you're running with different and varying levels of consistency, because all the ammunition is going to be made to different specs, you're going to lose your accuracy tremendously. Like, just because I have, say, Winchester 22 long rifle and Remington 22 long rifle, and both are 40 grain bullets moving at 1,200 feet per second or so from a long barrel, which is what I normally shoot 22 long rifle from. Just because I have both of those brands with both bullet types moving at the same velocities relatively, the accuracy might still be bad, because maybe Remington and Winchester use different powders that have different pressure curves. And maybe they're using different styles of projectiles, like maybe Remington is copper washed and Winchester is just a straight lead round. There's a bunch of different variables that come into the brands, and brand does matter depending on what it is that you're doing. If you're having fun, use whatever. But if you're doing anything real, then you might want to pay attention to it. Like, here's another really good example. A lot of your surplus ammunition is corrosive. A lot of your, even the same brands out there, a lot of your same brands that have been around for a long, long time that are making ammunition, maybe newer production stuff is non-corrosive, or older production stuff is corrosive. This right here is Turkish 8mm Mauser, and it is absolutely corrosive. But guess what? Modern made, say, PPU 8mm Mauser, that stuff is non-corrosive. This stuff right here, whenever it's fired, it is super spicy, super hot. It's a it's a 155 grain projectile moving at approximately 3,000 feet per second, with a caveat. Wartime production, I've seen them chronograph out to 3,200 feet per second. So this stuff is spicy, versus the modern-made 8mm Mauser, which is actually slightly underpowered just for company liability reasons. And, like I said, the corrosive and non-corrosive elements. What's another good example of where brand really matters? 30 carbine, however that's pronounced. The modern-made stuff is quite good. A lot of your military surplus stuff is quite good. But there's some 30 carbine military surplus out there that is corrosive. Like, for example, some of the things that the French made, 30 carbine ammo that the French made is corrosive. And this is an example of where, like, hey, Lake City brand 30 carbine will be good. This French 30 carbine, not the best idea to use in 30 carbine, because you can't take apart the gas system in a 30 carbine without replacing some of the little bits inside, because it's not meant to come apart. So I digress. Brand matters if the ammunition that you're using matters. If you're just having fun, then nothing really matters. But if you're doing anything important, then yeah, it absolutely matters. So thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garrett. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.